everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Heroes. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jake Stu.
And today we're talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, released in 2003, starring Johnny Depp, Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightly, Jeffrey Rush, and Jonathan Pryce, directed by Gore Verbinski and written by Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio, from a story by Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio, and Stuart Beattie and Jay Wolpert. This movie came out, like I said, in 2003. I saw it in the theater. What about you, Stu? Did you see it in the theater?
I did not see it in the theater. This was one of the movies that I watched when I was watching a bunch of movies from the library.
Oh, okay.
So I did not see any of these movies until after the third one came out.
Okay, so you probably watched like the whole trilogy then when you rented them?
I watched the whole trilogy in like 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah.
I saw this in the theater and it blew me away. I mean, I don't really remember the movie being announced, but I do remember kind of having a feeling like, really? They're making a movie on Pirates of the Caribbean? Like there was no story to the ride, you know? And I remember, or at least not that I recalled. I remember riding the ride when I went to Disney World as a kid, and I thought it was a cool ride with the animatronic pirates and stuff, but it was just, that's all it was just like, you rode the boat and saw the pirates moving, and that was it. And so I was like, how are they making a movie off that?
Yeah, I've never been to Disney World, so
oh, really?
I didn't even know it was a ride.
Yeah, it's actually like one of my favorite rides, even though there's not a whole lot to it. And they still use the animatronics, and they've actually added Johnny Depp now. So there's an animatronic, Jack Sparrow in a couple different spots. And there was actually, I hadn't seen this movie in a while. And when I saw it the first time, I hadn't been to Disney World since I was a kid. And I have since been there more recently. My wife and we went there for our honeymoon. And so there were a couple things that I noticed in the movie that were nods to the ride. Like when there's a couple of prisoners like trying to entice the dog that has the keys in its mouth. That's straight from the ride. There's these animatronics doing the exact same thing. There's a dog sitting there with the keys. And then
cool.
When they get to Tortuga for the first time, there's a lot in Tortuga that's straight from the ride. It's like a lot of those like drinking pirates and having a good time. That's all, I reckon. It's like they tried to recreate some of the ride for that scene. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Man,
couple little
I like that
Easter eggs. But yeah, this movie, Johnny Depp was already a big movie star, but he got an Oscar nomination for Jack Sparrow. This was clearly the role that he was born to play. It was you could tell he had a great time playing it. And obviously has loved playing Jack Sparrow because he's gone back and played him 4 more times. But
real quick.
Yeah.
Have you seen the third one?
I've seen 2, 3, and 4. I've not seen the 5th one.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to mention something, but I didn't know if it was going to be a spoiler for you. But obviously, it would not be.
What were you going to mention?
The fact that he had based it off Keith Richards, and then Keith Richards shows up and plays his father in the third
movie. Yeah, I thought that was kind of clever, and it was cool how I do remember reading that Jack Sparrow found, like, when he was doing kind of his research for the role, found out that pirates were basically kind of like the rock stars of their day. And so he was like, well, maybe I should base this kind of on a rock star. And so Keith Richards was kind of his inspiration for Jack Sparrow, which was pretty great.
That's genius.
Mm-hmm. And I got to say, I loved Jack Sparrow's introduction in this movie. The first time we see him, it's kind of a very heroic shot of him standing there kind of on the sail. But then we find out that his ship, it's not even a ship, it's a boat. His boat is sinking. And he doesn't, at first he trying to scoop out the water, but then the next time we see him, he's just riding the sail as it sinks into the water, and he just effortlessly steps onto the dock and starts walking away. It's a pretty great introduction to the character, I thought.
Yeah, it was a great introduction. I mean, like you said, he was born to play this role. He's so charismatic.
Mm-hmm.
He completely owns the movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it's just every time he's on screen, you can't help but smile. So yeah, he was definitely born to play Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yep. I agree. Even the tattoo of the sparrow on his arm apparently was fake, but he has now since gotten it as a real tattoo because he
Oh wow.
loves the character so much. So
Yeah. I wish there were more actors like that like just loved a particular character that they played so much.
hmm
You know, Hugh Jackman,
that's the first one
Wolverine,
that came
and
to mind when you said that. Yep.
yeah, yeah, he loves being Wolverine, Johnny Depp, he loves being Jack Sparrow. I mean, even Robert Downey Jr. Was Tony Stark
Yeah.
for 12 years.
Right.
So I mean, it's unfortunate that we don't get more actors that are that dedicated, but I get it. These are like big franchises, so you grow with the character over multiple movies and
Right.
multiple chapters of a big story. But it when an actor brings that much vigor to a role
hmm
and enthusiasm, um, and dedication, you can't help but respect that, and then that also shows up in their performance.
Yeah, for sure.
So like because they love the character so much, and they give it their all with every shot, and with every frame. That is like that's cinema magic that you can't replicate.
Yeah. What about some of the other actors in the film? Jeffrey Rush is Captain Barbosa. He's
I love Jeffrey Rush as Captain Barbosa.
I do too. He's got such a great, Jack Sparrow is the rock star pirate. Captain Barbosa is more of the pirate. He's kind of because I love how he's
He's a
got
quintessential pirate.
right. He's got the pirate voice and and everything and um I think it's Gibbs who has like the most pirate voice, He's the one that's always
Yeah, yeah.
he's the one that's always talking about how it's bad luck to do this, and he's told this story to Will Turner about how Jack Sparrow escaped from the island, and he's like he waited until the fish became, got to know him essentially, and then he's like, and then he roped
Mhm.
two sea turtles together and rode in, and he's like, where did he get the rope? So I like no, but
Oh,
Jeffrey Rush, he kind of, I say this in a good way, like he kind of chews the scenery. Like there's a couple of moments where the one moment in particular is when he's making a deal with Will Turner. They discover
mhm.
that he's Will Turner, and he's like, Elizabeth gets to go free, and he goes, right, we know that, and he's like, what else? And he's like, don't harm the crew. And Jeffrey Rush, I think, even like kind of leans in towards the camera so that you can really see like his nasty teeth, and he's like, agreed. And it's just like you can tell he's having a great time playing the character too.
Man, one of my favorite moments is when he's talking to Elizabeth Swan, and she is invoking the right of parlay.
Right.
And he leans in to her and says, "I'm disinclined to acquiesce to your request." But what makes that funny is that I forget what she says to start that conversation, but he says, "You're gonna have to forgive us, because we're but humble pirate folk." And then he says something like, "I'm gonna have to disincline to acquiesce your request." It's like you're not that humble.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Like if you use words like acquiesce.
And I think she was stunned by him using that, and then he goes, "That means no." He's like, it's pretty good. Yeah, Jeffrey Rush is he was outshined a little bit by Johnny Depp in this movie, but I think he deserves some praise as well because he is quite good in this movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This was the movie that kind of put Keira Knightly on the map too, if I recall. I don't think she had done Star Wars Episode 1, but she wasn't really, she didn't, I don't know. She may have had a couple lines in that movie, but she was basically playing a Natalie Portman disguise. It was like
Mhm.
she was technically kind of almost standing in for Natalie Portman's character. And then I can't remember what she did in between that movie and this one, but this is the one that I think kind of made her a star.
Yeah, I can't remember any other movie that she did before this other than Star Wars.
Right.
This was definitely the first thing that I had seen her in, and definitely probably the role that solidified her as the what I like to call the period piece princess.
Yeah,
Uh, because
that's a good point.
more times than not, Keira Knightley is in a corset.
Right. Yeah. Maybe she likes them. Maybe she's just a big fan of corsets
Maybe.
and says when she's signing the contract, do I have to wear one? Perfect.
Maybe she negotiates a corset in all her movies.
It could be.
Even the ones that don't that we
Right.
don't
Even the
see.
modern day
She's
ones
probably
like
wearing a corset.
that's pretty good.
Call it the corset clause. I'm not gonna sign on unless I get to wear a corset.
I like it. Could be true. Orlando Bloom was a somewhat of a fresh face too. He had done the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Return of the King came out the same year as this. So
I feel like I wouldn't necessarily say that he's a fresh face because I knew that he was in Lord of the Rings even though I hadn't seen the movies, and I knew who he was before Pirates for some reason. Even though I hadn't seen Lord of the Rings and hadn't
right.
seen Pirates, I knew of Orlando Bloom.
Yeah.
So
My guess is
he
because
was
it had to have been because I mean, I don't know, maybe there was something else. I had never heard of him before Lord of the Rings, and Fellowship and Two Towers had come out by the time this movie came out. Because I think this came out in the summer of 03, and then Return of the King came out in December of 03. And so, and Legolas was, is such a kind of a standout character in those movies that Orlando Bloom.
Oh yeah, Legolas is dope.
Yeah. People knew who Orlando Bloom was. So he wasn't necessarily like, I guess fresh face is the wrong term. He wasn't necessarily kind of new, not like Keira Knightley, but I had never seen him in anything other than Lord of the Rings. So this is the first time I had seen him kind of with his natural hair color and and a goatee and stuff like that. So
Right.
and it was cool seeing him in a different type of role too. And I thought he does a good job as Will Turner. And I think him and Keira Knightley work well together.
Absolutely. They definitely have chemistry for sure.
Yeah. I was thinking the kiss at the end of the movie it didn't, it wasn't like some of these other Man of Steel kisses and stuff that we talk about where it just doesn't feel earned. Like the one at the end of the movie it actually worked for me.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
I remember earlier we had talked about Dead Man's Chest, and I've only seen that movie once, and I wasn't a fan of it, and I'm excited about watching it again, especially after rewatching this movie. And I remember when
That's blasphemous.
I know. Well, we'll see. But I remember you brought up this movie, and you said that it was the first half or so was kind of slow. Maybe it wasn't quite as much as that, but watching it this time, I think the first act is a tiny bit slow. And then you texted me yesterday, I think, when you were watching it. And I feel the same way that when the Black Pearl finally shows up for the first time, that's when the movie kind of takes off.
That's when the movie gets going. Yep.
Yeah. So the first act it's like, I mean, there's some fun moments and stuff in the first act, but it takes a minute to kind of get going. And once the Black Pearl shows up, that's when the movie gets going. And from then on, it's very entertaining, I think.
It's world building. That's what the first act is doing, and it's also establishing characters. So after we meet the characters, we still have to get to know like who they are.
Right.
Which is the good thing about the first act because it does that well, but at the same time, it does feel a little long with the pacing because you're waiting on the Black Pearl to show up, and
Right.
Once the Black Pearl shows up, like you are definitely in for a treat for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. You reminded me of something talking about world building. Oh, so I didn't think about it the first time I watched the movie, but when I popped it in just now before we started recording and I watched the first scene, I realized that it's kind of creepy / gross that Norrington is a grown man and Keira Knightley's character is like 10 years old. And then the next time, and then when she becomes Keira Knightley, then they're getting, or he's proposing to her and stuff. It's like, dude, you're like 30 years older than
That
her.
is nasty.
Yeah,
That has never sat right with me.
and like I
One
said, I
bit.
didn't even pick up on it really the first time. I guess I just wasn't thinking about it. But when I restarted it, I was like,
Yeah, that's the one note that I took.
oh, really? That's funny. And obviously, it's like, Norrington, the actor didn't age. He obviously just did the scene with a younger actress and then was doing the scene with Keira Knightly. And I guess that's why I didn't really think about it the first time around. But no, that dude is he's the Commodore of the Navy or whatever when she's a young girl. So he's already, I mean, I don't know how old he is or how old he's supposed to be, but he's got to be at least like 30 at that point, right?
I would assume I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say mid-20s. Let's just say he was really good at his job
Okay.
and got promoted early.
So he's like
I'll
25.
give him the benefit of the doubt, but that's still creepy.
It is. And so even if he was 25 in that first scene, I think she's got to be around 10 years old, maybe 11. And so we skip ahead, I want to say 7 years, right? Because I think Keira Knightley's character Elizabeth says something about 7 years ago when we found you. I for some reason I have it in my brain that it's been 7 years. So she would then be
she's 18.
17 or 18, and he would be then 32. So yeah, it's just a little. I mean, I don't know. It's just weird, especially if it's one thing if you're 32 proposing to an 18-year-old, but it's another thing to be proposing to. You knew her when she was 10 years. Like you were an adult and knew her when she was 10. Like that's just weird.
Yeah, yeah. Now don't get me wrong. I have a friend back home in Cleveland. He used to babysit his wife, but they were only like 7 years apart.
Okay,
Not
yeah.
Yeah, not like 13, 14 years apart. Like you know what I mean? So
right.
like when she was 10, he was 17, and then they like separated and then like came back together. So it wasn't like he watched her grow up.
Right.
Yeah, like they separated, and by the time he saw her again, she was a grown woman.
Right.
And it was almost like a new relationship.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and that doesn't bother me. That seems fine.
Yeah.
This is weird because I feel like Norrington knew the governor, and we get the impression. Right. Yeah, that's true. We get the impression that Norrington was there the whole time working with the governor while she grew up. And so, yeah, it's like, it's got a creepy factor to it that's just kind of gross.
Yeah.
Which maybe that was the point. Maybe we were supposed to not like Norrington, and that was one of the reasons why. I mean, obviously Norrington is the one of the antagonists. He's not the antagonist. I would say that's Barbossa, but he's, he's we want Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann to be together. We don't want Elizabeth and Norrington to be together. And Norrington is also very anti-pirate. So he's the one trying to capture Jack Sparrow a lot and hang him and whatnot. So
and like I said, he is good at his job.
He is, yeah.
Because he's almost eliminated all pirates in his tenure as Commodore. So yeah, I have no idea where I was going with that point. So
no problem at all. I've been playing the movie for a little while. I started it before we started recording, and I'm at one of my favorite scenes. Elizabeth Swann is on the Black Pearl, and Barbossa tells her, "You better start believing in ghost stories because you're in one."
You're in one.
And he steps into the moonlight and he turns into zombie Barbossa or whatever. I think I love the whole curse on the Black Pearl pirates. I mean, that's the curse of the Black Pearl, the name of the movie.
Yes.
And I didn't, I rode the ride back in 92. I was 8 years old. So my memory's not great of it, but I don't remember that being a part of the ride either. So I think that was a new creation for the movie. And I thought it was so cool, so clever. It's just, I like that supernatural element to it. It's super cool.
Yeah, I think other than other than the characters, that is the best thing about the movie
Yeah.
is that it's a pirate movie, but it's also kind of a horror movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um or like a you know a fantasy with horror elements to it, and it it's very well balanced. To me, uh this is the quintessential pirate movie.
Yes.
Um, like I don't think any other movie has done pirates so both authentically and like fan, fan, fantasy, fantastical, whatever the word is.
Fantastical. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So it has a good balance of the two. Like the tone and the characters. It's so they present this larger than life fantasy in such a believable way because it's so authentic to the world as it was at that time. So
Right.
I don't want to say that they treat it as like historical fact because obviously they don't, but it's just it's so authentic, which is something
Yeah.
that I applaud, and it just the aesthetic just keeps you glued and keeps you engaged, and I love it. And I personally I think it still does that throughout the series, but you know we'll talk about that when we
Right. Right.
get to the sequels.
For sure. I agree with you. I think the like what you said, it may not be necessarily historically accurate. It feels very
Mhm.
authentic, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
because it feels so authentic, it also, I mean, this movie does an amazing job of balancing that authenticity, but also like action and comedy and horror.
Hmm.
Like it just works on
Hmm.
every. It's so well balanced. It works on every level. They could have made it to
Yeah.
where it felt very real, and so then when the pirates have show up with that curse, that could have felt very out of like left field. But
Hmm.
because we've seen Jack Sparrow already kind of do some of these, not fantastical, but like kind of, he dives into the ocean to save Miss Swan. Miss Swan falls off I don't know where they are, but she falls off like the cliff, I guess, and she's like, I can't breathe, and passes out and falls
Yeah,
into
I
the
forget
water.
where they are.
I do love that moment with Jack Sparrow too, because that's a great character moment too. It's again very in the beginning of the movie. He turns to the two like naval guards that are telling him he can't be on the ship, and he's like, "I suppose you were gonna
Yeah.
save her," and they're like, "I can't swim," and he's like, "Pride of the Navy, you are," and he takes off his stuff and goes. He's like, "I guess I have to do everything," um, which I think is great. But no, so we've already seen, and then we've seen Jack Sparrow escape from the Navy and kind of do these fun um antics or whatever you want to call it. So there's already kind of a little bit of
Mhm.
I don't know how to describe it. It's not suspension of disbelief, but it's like there's already kind of that fun, entertaining kind of element to the movie. So that way, when the pirates do show up and they have the curse, it feels authentic to the movie too. It just feels like it fits and everything.
Mhm.
So yeah, I like it a
Mhm.
lot.
I think the word I would probably use is like I guess whimsical, but
Mm-hmm.
not to the point where it's offensive. Like
Right.
not to the point where it's overdone. If it's just the right amount of fun without
Right.
making it like a kids movie
Cartoon or
because this is
something. Yeah.
PG-13, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Yep.
Yeah.
PG-13. Yeah, and they could have easily done that because it's a Disney film. They could have
Yeah.
easily gone in the other direction and made it very kind of silly and essentially just a live action cartoon. And so I'm
Mhm.
glad that they didn't do that. I'm glad that they kind of grounded it to an extent. Obviously, there's the curse and all that stuff, but it feels real. It feels authentic, but at the same time, it has these fantastical elements that I think just they work really well.
Yeah, for sure.
And of course, Johnny Depp brings the comedy, and there's a lot of funny moments. Not even just with him, but with other characters. There are the two pirates that are supposed to be kind of comic relief. They never really work for me. I mean, they're okay. I don't dislike them, but the one with the eye and the bald guy that's always with that guy, they're kind of the silly, dumb characters, that are on the Black Pearl.
Yeah.
And they add,
they're the what's the word I'm looking for? Hamlet.
The Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of.
Yes, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. The Timon and Pumbaa.
They are the Timon and Pumbaa. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. They're the R2D2 and C3PO, basically, of the Pirates movies.
R2D2 and CP3O. Yep. I mean, I like them though.
Yeah, I don't dislike them, but again, with those two characters, they could have gone farther and made it even more cartoony, and they didn't really. Like those characters are decent. I think the one with the eye, he's the eye joke is a little weird.
He's a little bit cartoony.
Yeah, he's a little cartoony, but the other one, I love the how he just keeps getting mad about parlay. People keep saying parlay, when he and he's like, come on. So that's pretty good.
And then when skipping ahead quite a bit, but then when the curse is lifted and the Navy has a gun pointed at him, he's like, parlay.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty good. I did like that. The guy with the eye, I don't know that actor's name, unfortunately, and I apologize. But he was essentially the Dwight Schrute of the original Office when it was on, when it came out in England. And his name wasn't Dwight, it was something else. They all had different names on the show. Like, I'm pretty sure the character of Jim was Tim on the British Office. Because I know Pam's character's name was Dawn. But I don't remember what his character's name was. But he was basically, he was essentially the Dwight Schrute of the British Office.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't seen much of The Office. I've always wanted to watch it, but I've only ever seen like maybe 4 or 5 episodes of it.
Oh, really?
I liked what I've seen. I just have never sat down to watch it. Every time I watch it, it's usually because someone else is watching it.
I rented the British Office when I was working at Blockbuster back in around the time that the Pirates movie came out, probably early 2000s. And I thought it was hysterical. I thought it was so funny. I had never heard of Ricky Gervais before. He plays the Steve Carell character, Yeah. And so then when I found out that they were making it into an American TV show, I was like, this is going to be awful. This is just going to be the worst thing ever. And it ended up being, funnier probably than the British show. I mean, the British show.
Yeah, I was saying it probably outshined the British.
It really did. Yeah. The American Office is really, really good. That's one of those shows though that I actually kind of want to go back and rewatch too, because I never finished it. I watched it not super regularly, but I watched it pretty good for a few seasons, and then once Steve Carell left, I kind of stopped watching. But I need to go back and
you
finish
did what
the whole
everybody
thing.
else did.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but that show has some. I mean, that show is great. And fun fact, when I was living in California, the office where they shot that show was actually like 5 minutes from my apartment.
Wow. I live in Conyers, and they're always shooting something in Conyers. A couple months ago, they were shooting Doom Patrol here.
Oh, nice.
15 minutes from the house, or about 20 minutes really, from my house in Covington. They shot Vampire Diaries and the originals.
Right. I knew Vampire Diaries shot in Georgia. I didn't know where exactly, but yeah. Doom Patrol, I guess I didn't realize was shot in Georgia. That's pretty cool. That's a show that I need to get back into. I started the first season and I liked it. I just, for whatever reason, stopped watching it, and I need to. I mean, now it's on season. I think season 4 is currently out.
Yes. I got a couple friends on that show. Like one of my friends' son played young Victor,
Oh, cool.
and one of the actors in a short film that I scored a couple years ago, last year, I believe, or about a year and a half ago. Um, he's currently in season 4. I forget what character he plays, but he's with he's usually with Victor.
Nice. That's awesome. Very, very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I've told, I tell a lot of people that, I moved out to California for acting. It got too expensive out there and we moved back, which is all true. And then everybody usually always says, well, Atlanta shoots so much, you could be acting here, which is very true. I could be. But I think my dream has kind of shifted. I still love acting and I would obviously not turn down the opportunity to be on something like Doom Patrol or something,
Mhm.
but I've kind of my dream has kind of shifted. I'm focusing more on kind of the writing aspect and everything. But yeah, Atlanta has. I mean, just there's so much that shoots here. It's the Hollywood of the South, I guess. But anyway, I want to talk
Pretty
about.
much.
Yeah, no, I mean it really is. It's unfortunately some of the main casting still happens in L.A. But a lot of it, a lot of the smaller parts get casted in Atlanta. And so I feel like eventually, if you really want to, that's not entirely true, I guess. I was going to say, if you really want to succeed as an actor, you eventually might need to move to LA, but not necessarily. I know a guy who lives here. Now, granted, he started his career in LA, but he lives here in Georgia, and he's made a career. I mean, he's been acting for 40 years. His first credit was Beverly Hills Cop. And so, like, his first few credits, he was in LA, but then he got married and they moved to Georgia, and he's been doing stuff. He does a lot of TV. He was in American Made with Tom Cruise. He had a kind of a small part. I mean, and his small parts have been getting larger over the last few years. So he's doing, he's doing very well. If I could have his career, I'd be very happy, His name's Mike Panuski.
That's awesome.
Yep.
But the thing is about acting is like you gotta constantly audition,
Right.
unless you're a superstar, which is few and far between. But
Exactly.
that's what most of acting is auditioning
And getting rejected.
Getting rejected. You get 30,000 no's to get that one yes.
Right, exactly.
And then, that yes could last 3 months, could last a couple days, could last 9 months.
Right.
But no matter how long it is, it's gone in a flash, and then the process starts all over
Right,
again. So.
Exactly. I have told myself that if I win this one, well, I don't want to say this will date the episode, but I was going to say, if I win this $1 billion lottery and I don't have to work, yes, I'll start auditioning for things. But that's my whole dilemma with acting right now, is like, I'm not willing to give up my job to do this 2-3 day acting job and then be looking for another job after that. So it's the whole like kind of insecurity of acting that has kind of driven me away from it a little bit. Because I knew people in California. I mean, that's why it's such a young person's. I know I'm not that old, but like, it's why it's such a young person's thing, because you don't care if you quit your job at TGI Fridays to do this acting job, and then you'll start working at some other restaurant, after you're done doing your acting gig. And then when another acting gig comes, you'll say goodbye to that. Like, it's, but now that I've got a wife and a mortgage and a son and all that, it's a little bit more difficult to do that type of stuff.
No, I completely understand. Like with acting, you gotta be obsessed with it.
Yes.
That's
the other thing.
It's definitely it definitely takes a certain amount of energy and dedication.
Absolutely.
To be an actor.
Yeah.
And like I said, I applaud them, because like we said before, it's constant rejection. That's 90% of the job, is getting rejected.
Yeah.
And you got to get used to being told no real quick.
Yeah,
Because that's all you're gonna hear for months at a time.
yeah. If not,
So
yeah. I mean, yeah. If not years. I mean, hopefully you'll get a yes every now and again, but you know, you never know. And they could, and the thing that like I kind of learned, because a lot of, you know, they tell you got to have a thick skin to be an actor because you're going to get
mhm.
all those no's. But they say no for whatever. It's not because you are a bad actor. It's because
It's
you
not what they're looking for.
just not, yeah, you don't have the right look, or it's just, yeah, it's just, it could be for any reason really. But I agree 100%. You know, there's a book by Michael Caine that I have called Acting in Film, and in the very beginning of the book he says acting is more than a part-time. If you want to become an actor but you still want to, like, I think he said something about still want to have your, you know, your golf game or whatever. He's like, forget it. He's like, acting is more than a part-time job. It's more than a full-time job. It's a full-time obsession. And
Yep.
and that was kind of hard for me because I have pretty much had wanted to be an actor since I was in middle school, and I had to really kind of think about it. And I was like, am I full-time obsessed with acting? And the answer was no, but I was full-time obsessed with movies slash storytelling. Um,
Yeah.
so I decided, you know, well, maybe acting is, I love acting, but at the same time, I'd be okay with maybe having it be a hobby, you know, doing community theater
Mhm.
or something on the side. I'd still feel pretty creatively fulfilled doing that type of stuff. But
Mhm.
I'm full-time obsessed with movies. I'm obsessed with books and stories, and that's where I want to do something with that, you know? So
No, absolutely, absolutely. But and again, going back to Pirates, I applaud actors who find that one role after after all those no's and the couple of yeses that kind of got them to that point. I applaud them that they dedicate themselves to that particular role and just give it everything. You know,
yeah.
Hugh Jackman was Wolverine for 17 years
Right.
and he loved every minute of it. I mean, up until maybe like the last one, because he got tired of being on a restricted diet.
Crazy diet, yeah, and all that,
Um,
all the working out
yeah,
and
but I
everything.
mean, for the most part, these actors, they I love when they find that role and they just give it everything. It just is beautiful to watch.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing it back to Pirates and getting us in and reining us back in. It's interesting that you bring up Hugh Jackman though, because Stuart Beattie, and I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name exactly, but I guess he's Australian, and he's got a story credit on this movie. And apparently, this movie had
Hmm.
been trying to get off the ground since the '90s, and
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
and I don't know if he wrote the first draft of the script or what, but apparently, when he wrote it, he had Hugh Jackman in mind for Jack Sparrow,
Mm.
um, which would have been a completely different movie. I think it would have been great, but
Yes.
it would have been a completely different movie. So that was kind of interesting because, especially in the '90s, no, you know, American audiences didn't know who Hugh Jackman was. We didn't know who Hugh Jackman was until he played Wolverine in X-Men in 2000.
Right.
But Stuart Beattie, I guess, is Australian, so he was familiar with Hugh Jackman, or maybe even friends with Hugh Jackman when he wrote the original
Hmm.
script or story. But but yeah, but I can't imagine anyone else playing Jack Sparrow other than Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Same here.
He's got the perfect look. I mean, again, like I said, he was born to play the role.
It again going back to the authenticity of the movie. It doesn't feel like he's acting.
Right.
Because I mean, that's how acting should be. You shouldn't be
Exactly.
able to tell that a person is acting. Since I've started my filmmaking journey, I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos on movies and making films and behind the scenes stuff and storytelling and it this this one producer said, or I'm sorry, she wasn't she was a writer. She said that acting acting isn't acting. Acting isn't lying. It's real emotions in imagined situations. So again, like I just applaud those kinds of people that just really like just dig down and bring those real emotions to screen and
Yeah.
do it do it so well. Like you can't teach that. I mean, you can teach it to a certain extent, but some people just have it. And
Yeah.
Johnny Depp,
He just
he's
has it.
got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so when I used to take acting classes, like a lot of my acting teachers would talk about being truthful. You know, if you,
Yes, yes.
you know, um and if you weren't being if it didn't feel truthful, like then we could tell you were acting, that type of thing. And it's true,
Mhm.
if somebody
Yeah.
has not really connected with it, is not giving, it's hard to explain what that means exactly, but it's like if you aren't in it, if you aren't like giving it your all, we can tell. As an audience, we can tell. You know what I mean? And so yeah, Johnny
Yeah.
Depp,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like you're right, some people just have that natural talent, and Johnny Depp has it
Yeah.
in this movie especially. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But no, you're absolutely right. It's just a human thing that you can tell. Denzel Washington said, you have to be truthful because the camera will catch you lying.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
I mean that's 100% true. Like how many times have we been on this podcast and said that he he was phoning it in or it felt
hmm,
hammy or and then
yep,
luckily nobody in this movie feels like that.
yeah. Nobody. It all feels,
Yeah.
and because of that, I think that's another reason why it feels so authentic. Because none of them feel like they're actors acting. They all feel like real people in this situation. I want to talk about one of my favorite aspects of the movie, and that's the music. So the music,
The score is
the
fantastic.
yeah, the score is credited to Klaus Badelt. Klaus Badelt. Um, Before we started recording, I looked him up, and he has done a significant amount of movies. But like, I have the only movie that I could tell you that he's scored is this movie. And
Right.
and
Same.
the story I heard, which I don't think is true, but the story I heard was he was having trouble scoring the film. He could not come up with like a good theme for the movie, and turned to Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer, apparently, I read today that Hans Zimmer was a fan of his because he was scoring movies in Germany, and so Hans Zimmer asked him to come work with him in America, and worked with him on a few different movies. And then this, I don't know if this was the first movie that Klaus Badelt had like as a solo composer, but
Yeah.
the story I heard, and like I said, I don't think this is true, but the story I heard was Klaus Badelt was having trouble coming up with a theme, and Hans Zimmer was like, "Well, I got this theme that I never knew what to use for, so use that." And it was it was the Pirates theme. Now, I do think because the score, if you look in the credits, the score was produced by Hans Zimmer. It says additional music by Ramin Djawadi, Steve
Was a
Jablonsky,
protege
yep,
of
and Blake Neely. Those are the three names that I recognize. Blake Neely does
yo,
like,
the school of Hans Zimmer.
yeah, pretty much. Blake Neely does like all the CW superhero shows now. But
Yeah. He does a fantastic job. That the Arrow
yeah. And the Flash theme I
theme
think is
and
really good
the
too. Yeah.
Flash theme. Oh
Yeah.
man.
But anyway, I do think Hans Zimmer apparently came up with the main Pirates theme. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
and then Klaus Badelt kind of did everything else. But and I guess that's the reason why, because Hans Zimmer does the score for Dead Man's Chest and At World's End, and this is the only Pirates movie that Klaus Badelt did. So I'm wondering if it's because Hans Zimmer came up with the theme that he was just like, I'll do the next movie, like, or I don't know how that happened, but
I could see that story being true. What I found interesting is that Hans Zimmer was a fan
Klaus Badelt,
of him.
yeah, right.
I was for one of the greatest composers to ever walk the face of the earth to be a fan of you, like you
Right.
must be pretty good.
Which is why, if that story is true, then like Hans Zimmer was like, "Really, you can't come up with a Pirates theme? Here, use this."
But that's crazy. Like he just had this. If that is true, he just had a throwaway theme, and it even Hans Zimmer's throwaway themes sound
That's
fantastic.
yeah, and that's partly why I don't believe it's true, because the Pirates theme works so perfectly for this movie. I can't imagine that he just had that theme just lying around and it just fit the movie so well.
Playing around.
Like I bet what really, if Klaus Badelt had trouble coming up with a theme, I'm sure Hans watched the film and was like, well, here's what I've got in mind, and came up with it. I don't know if he was just like, just use this theme I've had lying around that I don't know what to do with, I don't know.
Let me dust off this old crappy arrangement.
Right.
Here, you can have that. You can have the crumbs.
Right. No, but the music is fantastic though, and the music in the second and third movie, I've got those soundtracks on my phone. They're amazing as well. Like the music is really good in the Pirates movies.
Yeah, oh man, in the third one, in the third act of the third movie, man, I cannot wait to talk about it.
Speaking of third acts, one of my favorite moments in this movie is when you see the pirates walking along the bottom of the ocean, towards the naval ship. I forget what the name of the boat is that they're going towards, but the music that plays and seeing them come into the moonlight and turn into their like zombie forms as they're just walking along the bottom of the ocean. Yeah. So good. It's so
like
good.
they're underwater and the moonlight is hitting them, and they're already like in their zombie forms, and they walk under the boat and turn human, and then walk from under the boat back into the moonlight and turn back into zombie. Like it's such a what's the word I'm looking for? The composition of the scene is just so brilliant.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm at the scene where they just got to Tortuga.
Oh, cool. I'm at the part where
they're waking up
Gibbs,
yeah.
I'm at the part where the Black Pearl and the Interceptor are fighting each other, so they're blowing cannons at each other, and Jack goes, "Stop blowing holes in my ship." He's like in the brig, and for half a second you think Will Turner's dead because the whole ship blows up,
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm glad you brought up Will Turner. I like. There's a thing about this movie, like Johnny Depp. It's his movie.
Yeah.
But the movie feels like it's from Will's point of view for the most part. And I like that. It's kind of like what's the book? F. Scott Fitzgerald.
The Great Gatsby?
Yeah, Great Gatsby. Like the book is about Gatsby, but it's not from his point of view. It's from another character's point of view, and I thought that's genius to me. I like when writers tell stories like that, or like Moby Dick. Captain Ahab is the star of the show. Well, I mean, the whale is the star of the show,
right? But it's from Ishmael's point of view, yeah.
From Ishmael's point of view, yeah. I think that's brilliant.
No, I agree, and I also really like how Will Turner is central to the plot. They need his blood to undo the curse, and so he's not just some. He's not just some love interest character for Elizabeth Swann. He's actually, vital to the story.
He's pushing the plot forward.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But you're right. It is kind of, Jack Sparrow is who we think of when we think of Pirates of the Caribbean. And Johnny Depp it's obviously Johnny Depp's movie, but it really is more Will Turner's kind of story. He's the one that we find in the opening scene with the medallion. And then he's the one that, once Elizabeth Swann gets kidnapped, he's like, we have to go after her. And Norrington and the governor drag their feet or or whatever. They say no, or they tell him that he's not part of the Navy and stuff. So that's when he goes and gets Jack, and because Jack knows how to get a ship, and it really is kind of. You're right. It's like one of those things that is obvious, but I hadn't really thought about it. If you'd asked me before that who the main character of the movie is, I would have said, well, Jack Sparrow. But really, I think it's Will Turner.
Yeah, yeah. Your favorite part is coming up when the curse is revealed.
Nice. I don't know if that's
some
my
nasty
favorite
food
part.
on the table.
Yeah. It's a good part.
It's all wrinkly and cold and ugh. Like none of it looks appetizing at all. And Keira Knightly is devouring that turkey leg.
Oh yeah. When she's on the Black Pearl.
So what is your favorite part of the movie?
Gosh, I think it might be when the pirates of the Black Pearls walk along the bottom of the ocean like that in the moonlight. That's just such a kind of an iconic moment.
Yeah. I think for me it would be after that, the third act, when Johnny Depp is, trying to make a deal, or Jack Sparrow is trying to make a deal with Barbosa, and he picks up the
Gold
Cortez's
medallions.
coins.
Yeah.
Yeah, the medallions, and he keeps one, and then they have their sword fight. And he steps into the moonlight. He
Yeah,
looks like, oh, well, that's interesting. I was like,
that part is great. It's really, really good. There's actually, have you ever watched the post-credit scene?
yes, but I don't remember it. I haven't watched that post credit scene in years.
There's not much to it, but you see Barbosa still lying, on near the treasure where Jack shot him, and the little monkey, which is also apparently named Jack, comes up and he takes one of the medallions from Cortez's treasure, and then he turns towards the camera and he's in the moonlight, so he looks like kind of like a zombie monkey, and then he just like kind of towards the screen, and then it cuts to black. Yeah.
I do remember that.
I am looking forward to rewatching Dead Man's Chest because I've only seen it the one time, so I can't remember how Barbosa comes back. I know he does. I know Jeffrey Rush is in part 2 and 3, but I don't remember how he comes back. So I'm looking forward to kind of rewatching that and relearning.
I'm not gonna say how he comes back because I know you don't remember it, so I'm not gonna. I want you to experience it.
Right.
But I will say he's not in the movie much at all.
I remember he doesn't show up, at least in Dead Man's Chest. He doesn't show up until close to the end, right? And then he's in At World's End a little bit more, I think. But yeah, I do remember that. Like it was kind of a reveal in Dead Man's Chest.
Yeah. Like the scene, I think I'm gonna just wait until we get to Dead Man's Chest.
Okay.
That's the one. Because for a long time, I At World's End was my favorite, but I realized that upon rewatches, Dead Man's Chest really is the best Pirates movie. It's just that At World's End has such a fantastic third act that it kind of overshadows the rest of the movie for me.
Right.
But Dead Man's Chest is the pirate movie.
All right. Sounds like I need to rewatch it. So we'll get to it.
They get way more into the fantasy element of it.
Right. With Davy Jones.
To me, it's a more fun movie. Although there's a lot of dialogue in the second act on the Flying Dutchman, but despite that, I still think that Dead Man's Chest is the more is the funner movie.
Nice. I think my big complaint with it was, and again, I have not seen it since I saw it in the theater, was because it was about 2.5 hours long, and it felt like, I remember walking out of the theater feeling it was just 2.5 hours of setup for the third movie. But I'm hoping I feel differently when we watch it for the podcast.
I didn't feel that way. Like I said, it didn't really feel slow until like maybe the like the second half of the second act. Um, maybe a little earlier than that, but no, still it the good things about that movie are great,
Right.
and for me at least, completely overshadow the negative things about the movie.
All right. Well, we'll have to do Dead Man's Chest pretty soon, I guess. Maybe 2 or 3 movies from now we'll
Because
do
like watching this, if it hadn't have been so late at night, I probably would have watched
Just
Dead
started
Man's
out. Yeah,
Chest.
yeah.
But it was
I
like
thought about it too.
it was like 12:30, and I had to go to bed.
Yeah. Unfortunately for me, I had to watch this movie kind of over the course of a couple days because I pretty much have no free time right now. So the only time I can do anything is after my son goes to bed. And then, of course, I'm tired. So I'm sitting there and I had to like watch it on my phone. And so I'm sitting there watching on my phone. And then, I end up dropping my phone because I'm falling asleep. And I'm like, okay, I can't watch this movie. So I had to watch it in kind of 20, 30-minute increments. Tonight actually worked out okay. So I was able to finish it today. I was worried I wasn't going to be able to finish it before we had to record, but thankfully I did. So, Stu, I'd like to know what you would rate Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl.
No, this is hard because talking about it makes me want to give it a higher score.
Oh, sure, yeah.
However, I am not going to let my current feelings get in the way of how well I think the movie, executes its goals. So I think I'm going to give it. Uh, I'm going to give it a very strong, very very strong 4 out of 5 Jolly Rogers.
That's cool. That's very cool. I think if the first act for me was a little bit tighter, this would pretty much be a 5-star movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm going to go and it's funny, you talked earlier about how like this was the quintessential like pirates, or this was kind of the first movie that made pirate movies good. And it's true, Disney was worried apparently about making this movie because historically no other pirate movie had done well at the box office.
The only one that had done well wasn't even really a pirates movie, and that was Goonies.
Right, yeah. But do you remember the movie Cutthroat Island with Gina Davis? I think that was like the last pirate movie that came out before this one, and it was a huge box office bomb.
I've never seen it, but I've heard of it.
I've never seen it either. We should watch it we should do a review of it. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but we should look it up.
Probably not.
So anyway, Disney was worried about making pirates movies because just historically pirate movies did awful. But this one they did perfectly, I think, just about perfectly. So yeah, for me it's 4.5. I don't know. I got nothing. Stars.
You could have said
swords. I was thinking hats, medallions, gold medallions. Ships, yeah,
medallions.
Yeah. 4.5 sales.
Yeah, I
don't know.
Like I said, I wanted to give it a higher score after talking about it, but I'm disinclined to acquiesce.
That means no. Yeah, and
means no.
This one has always been my favorite of the Pirates movies. You say Dead Man's Chest is the best one, so I'm curious now if I will give Dead Man's Chest as high of a score or not. I guess we'll find out when we get there. But yeah, this one still, to me, still holds up.
Listen, make sure you are not tired when you watch that movie.
Right. I will make sure I'm bright-eyed and awake and everything. So, well, we'd love to know what you think about Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. You can always let us know at cinemaheroes.com. You can also leave us a comment on our Instagram or tweet at us. Both handles are at Cinema Heroes. You can also leave a comment on this video if you're watching on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'd love to hear from you however you want to reach out to us. But I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.